Here is a long overdue podcast with my dear friend Dara, also known as the Magic Skeptic.
That's me, yes. I have to say, it's really weird when you introduce me as Magic Skeptic. I know it's the moniker that I've gone with, and it's not weird at all when my subscribers call me Magic Skeptic or when people in the comments refer to me as Magic Skeptic and so on. But as you said, and I really appreciate you introducing me that way as your dear friend, but of course you were my dear friend PJ. And anyway, it's weird to hear my close friends calling me Magic Skeptic. It must be what it's like for, I don't know, like if a person called their parent by their name rather than saying mum or dad or something. Like there's a, do you know the feeling I'm describing? I forgive, this is a really silly introduction to the podcast, but I just feel the need to mention it.
Yeah, if say the President of Ireland, Michael D. Higgins, if say his son or daughter referred to him as President Higgins rather than Dad.
Or just said Higgins.
Yeah.
It's really funny. It's really funny because I have a mate who you know as well. And I think you know what I'm talking about. We shouldn't name this person. But they referred...
We've already half named him.
He refers to his mother using her first name, and it's just absolutely hilarious. And he does it in such a casual way. It's like he's talking to a stranger in the street, you know. And it always gives me a tickle. But in any case, it's a pleasure to be here, PJ. I'm absolutely delighted.
Excellent. Right. So, what are we going to talk about, lad?
My hands.
A fine set of hands they are.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
Magic hands.
It is the nature of these things, isn't it? We don't really make a plan, but yet somehow we always end up, at least in my humble estimation, we always end up somewhere interesting. Certainly on my podcast, hopefully we can replicate the same thing here today.
Yeah. It was actually the last podcast that I uploaded with Ducky. We were speaking about... Yeah. What a fucking insufferable prick.
I'd never have him on my channel.
Well, it's only for, you know, he's amassed a certain following and I'm kind of riding on his coattails, but other than that...
Yeah, utility.
Yeah, yes, that's it. It's a purely pragmatic arrangement. I wouldn't put in or out with him other than
that. He's got great hands as well, if you get my meaning.
He most certainly does. What was I going to say? Yeah, but on the last podcast that we did, we spoke about you at one point.
Oh, goodness, I haven't listened to it yet, so...
Oh, well. Nothing bad.
We exposed your many crimes.
Yeah, that's it. We've exposed your many crimes, your address, full name.
We interviewed several of your victims.
Yeah, it was a kind of like you can expect a kind of a Philip Schofield scenario.
Oh, goodness gracious
any of these days.
Have you been watching that whole thing?
Not really. I just, through osmosis, I've picked up on what's going on. But that lad, I never liked that prick. There was always something about him, and that other fucking yoke that he presents it with as well. She just seems like a horribly false fitch, like, you know. And
just tell us what you really think, PJ.
Like, I don't know. I think maybe that's the thing with a lot of TV hosts. Like, over here, you know, in Ireland, we have Ryan Tuberty and all of their equals. And I guess it comes with the territory of, like, you have to put on a certain persona to present this thing. But I don't know what it is about them. They just felt particularly false. In a world...
Particularly false.
Yeah. In a world of false, insufferable bastards.
They stood out.
Yeah, they stood out as being particularly insufferable.
I must admit, I never got that feeling from them. That said, now, I'm not a watcher of television.
Nor I
don't... Like you said, I have encountered them through osmosis. I love that phrase, by the way, because it's so true. It just seems that in today's day and age... You just actually can't avoid the news because we all have a global telecommunications device in our pocket, otherwise known as a mobile telephone. And if you go out into public, you're bombarded with advertisements, and if it's not at the bus stop, it's on a billboard, and if it's not on a billboard, some arsehole in your office or wherever you work is talking about it. It's just impossible to avoid it. But I will say the little bit that I did experience of Schofield and Willoughby, and they never struck me the way they struck you. They just seemed like decent, kind news presenters. And I think it's worth pointing out, the little I know about it, I don't think there's any allegation of wrongdoing on Holly Willoughby's part, but Schofield,
I don't mean...
if the allegations are to be believed, and it seems that at this stage he's actually done an interview where he's basically admitted to the whole thing, but I don't know enough about it to even postulate what the allegations are. I'm aware that there was some sexual impropriety of some description that went on there.
To the best of my knowledge, like grooming some young fella that he knew since the age of 12 and got him working within the BBC or some such thing, and then I don't know how long he waited before he started shafting him, but shafted him he did. So
I'm so happy this is going up on your channel and not my channel.
Yeah, sure, look.
I mean, just for the record, I'm not laughing because of what allegedly occurred. I'm laughing because PJ has just such a poetic way of describing it.
Well,
I don't know how long he waited before he shafted him, but
like a rose by any other name, Dara. I mean, he was shafting that young fella. Phrase it whatever way you want, but that's what he was doing.
I'll take your word for it, PJ.
Yeah. Take his word for it. He's fucking copped to it, basically. But
this week on the Shaft Report. We're all being shafted by the government. That's all I know.
Yeah, life shafts us all.
Yeah. Nobody dies a virgin, it would seem.
No, absolutely.
Because life shafts everybody one way or another.
Yeah. But I think we mentioned, like I was saying, we were talking about you there on the last podcast I did with Ducky. I think I mentioned that whenever you and me ever attempt to have a casual conversation, it always ends up in the fucking darkest of places, just organically. And we might have even said something at the start of it to the effect of, we'll try and keep this light now, we'll try and keep this kind of light-hearted and jovial. And next thing we're talking about, tens of thousands of people getting swallowed in an earthquake and a universe that is absolutely indifferent to it, and how pointless it all is, and it's just a big bag of misery. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've used this analogy with you before, PJ, in our private conversations, and you seemed to resonate with you, so I'll repeat it here in the hopes that it will resonate with your listeners. But I feel like you and I are the people sitting in a bar, and we're the only ones who are talking about the fact that the bar is on fire.
Yes,
and that there's people over there in the corner being consumed by the flames and screaming in agony, and everybody else is just at the bar having a drink, and they just don't want to be told about it. And you and I bring it up, and we're like, but look what's going on, like look around you, look what's happening in the world. And they're like, sure, look, be grand, sure, look, I've a wedding coming up there now, and sure, I'm enjoying my pint, so leave me alone. and you and I are just honestly acknowledging the fact that we're sitting in a burning building. And the worst thing about that acknowledgement is that the doors are locked and the flames are going to consume us at some point as well. Yeah. And in fact, my foot is currently on fire, and it's the beginning of the end.
I'm in terrible pain. Oh, will you shut up there and sup on your pint, will you?
So, in any case, I introduced that analogy here because, and forgive me for swearing here, but fuck everybody else who thinks that you and I are dark, twisted, or depraved, because as far as I'm fucking concerned, you and I are the only ones who are speaking honestly about the circumstance in which we find ourselves. Everybody else who wants to delude themselves into believing that they're living in cotton candy land and that everything is happy and rosy in the garden, they're the ones who are deluded, and I won't.
Yeah,
I refuse to be silent about that.
I couldn't agree more. Like, I mean, I can't make out a smile though I wear a frown, if you get me. I'm inside in work, and some days I'm morbidly depressed, and I neither have the will nor the desire to make that out to be anything other than what it is.
You're not going to engage in theatrics.
No. And people, well, they respond like I'm a proper weirdo and all that. But people aren't really interested in engaging with people other than via platitudes. And that drives me up the wall. This expectation that, like, someone asks you, "Oh, hello, how are you today?" But they don't actually really want to know. They just want you to respond and go, "I'm great, how are you?" And they can respond in kind, and we can have a fucking mind-numbing, soul-destroying conversation about, "Oh, did you do anything at the weekend? Did you go out? Did you? What did you do when you went out? And where did you go? Oh, I went here. And what did you do? Did you drink a bit of the... I did, yeah. And we came home then and we had chips and it was great."
And Martin spilled the burger sauce down his jumper.
Yeah. All this fucking shit, like, and then there's an obligation on you to go, and to ask these people what it is they're fucking up to, and they'll tell you about some mundane shit that they did with their kids and all this stuff, and you're fucking just there like, Christ above, I don't actually really want to fucking know this, but there's a social obligation that we have to do this dance. Don't think for a second I believe that you give a shit about what I was doing either. You just can't share silence with me, and I would have that all day, every day, if I only could, if you would only fucking grant me silence.
There's two solutions to it that I've come up with, and they're not original to myself, of course.
Okay.
Because I agree with you that inane, platitudinous diatribe is utterly sickening. So the two solutions I've come up with, when I go back to work now on Monday, and at the time of recording, just so the listeners are aware, I'm a teacher. Your audience may not be aware of that. I'm a secondary school, or what you might call in America, a high school teacher. So my midterm break is about to end and I'll be back into work Monday. We're recording this on a Saturday. So when I go back, everybody, "So what did you do for the week? What did you do?" And the same kind of thing you were referencing just a moment ago, PJ. But my response now, this is option A. Option A is to just come up with a very short, sharp answer that terminates the conversation quickly. And the one I've come up with, and they all know I'm going to say it now before I even say it, which has led to them not asking anymore, which is fucking excellent. But I just say, I ate loads and I slept loads. Yeah. That's what I say. That's my answer. And that, if you're not a moron, clues you into the fact that this person isn't really interested in telling you about how their week went. So they say, oh, how was your midterm? I ate loads and I slept loads.
Yeah, and the person that you're responding to isn't actually interested in hearing what you did either.
Exactly.
They just can't deal with silence.
But I don't reciprocate. I don't say, "And how was yours?" I just say, "I ate loads and I slept loads." And then I just move on. The other option is if it's not in a workspace environment, because I do feel some level of compulsion to respond to my work colleagues, because at the end of the day, don't shit where you eat. I've got to go in and face those people every day. But if I'm at the gym or whatever, a really good solution is to just have headphones on. And you can, that's a very powerful, I think, social signal that you're not interested in talking to people.
That's one of my pet peeves, because I often go places wearing the headphones and that. And if someone can obviously see, and I'm going back now before we were like wireless headphones, where you had wired headphones that you could not miss. You were wearing the fucking things. And if someone tries to speak to you to spite the fact you're wearing those fucking things, like that rightly pisses me off. It's like, I clearly don't want to be spoken to. Fuck off. Do you know?
Yeah. Some people, like you said, it's more out of their discomfort than anything else that they feel the need to engage in that kind of inane chatter. But I share your frustration with it. that said, I don't know, I think we have to extend some kind of an olive branch. I mean, everybody's going through a battle in their own mind. Everybody, you know, you and I are the people who are in agreement about the analogy that we're sitting in a bar and the bar's on fire and basically the world is a shithole. And just to be clear, it's not to say that I'm ungrateful for my life. I'm very grateful for many of the things I have. I have a wonderful partner, and I have hobbies that I love, and I have friends that I have great time for, you being one of them, PJ, and I get to have fascinating conversations like this with you. So I appreciate all of that. But anyway, all that acknowledged, it's important, I think, that we just remember the circumstance that we're both in agreement about, that we find ourselves in, because everybody else is in that circumstance as well. And maybe some people's way of dealing with the horrors of life is to just engage in something that is perhaps inane, but maybe a distraction. I don't know. Everybody's trying to get through this shit show one way or another, and so I suppose we have to extend some kind of sense of humanity to these people who are just trying to get to the end of the day.
I suppose, when you know that this, so what did you do for the weekend kind of thing, like it's just the go-to question that this person is asking everyone, or that people ask each other. And it's just, I don't know, I can't deal in falseness. I just can't do it. And I'm like, once I know myself fully that you know, I've often responded to people in work and I've just kind of went, come on now, you don't actually give a shit now about what I was doing. And next thing they'd start laughing, and the laughter to me indicates that, like, oh, you're actually right there now, but this is the first time that someone's actually said it to me. And I just said, like, it's like, look, I can assure you that there was absolutely nothing particularly fucking interesting about what I was up to. The particulars of which you don't really want to hear, and I couldn't really be arse telling. So, you know, let's just move on now from that swiftly, and yeah, forget about it.
Yeah.
Now, unless there was, you know, you witnessed a murder or something at the weekend, and there was something like a particular red herring, something that normally wouldn't happen. Something spectacular. Other than that, now, I don't want to know about you went up to fucking the local pub, you had 6 pints, you came home, you woke up with a sore head, you sat around, you watched some shit on the telly, and you ordered takeaway. I don't want to know about that. Now, if, I don't know, you witnessed a bank robbery, a murder, you saw aliens, Christ appeared to you in the night, tell me about that, yeah, fine, but fucking go away with your fucking just mind-numbing shit talk, please.
Mind-numbing shit talk.
Now look, I have work colleagues now that, you know, that we share interests. Like there's one guy I work with now, and he's big into film and writing, and he's actually writing a book and stuff at the moment, and he's a fairly interesting guy. I actually was myself and Ducky were in a film and TV course with this guy, and I just happened to cross paths with him again in this line of work. So me and him have plenty to talk about. A couple of other lads in there that, you know, we have a common interest in cars, so I can talk away to them. But, you know, just other people that, like, a different age, be they slightly younger, slightly older. There's a lot of lads in there that, you know, they're into sport, and I'd rather have my nails pulled out than sit down to look at 5 minutes of that. So I don't really have particularly much to say to those fellas other than, hello, how are you? You're good? I'm great. Yeah, I lie and say I'm great.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, no, I just can't help but feel that sometimes we can just be so wrapped up in our own heads that it's, you know, like, because I totally share the frustration. Like, we're totally on the same page in terms of how we feel about this phenomenon where people engage in chatter. But chatter, though it might be, like, let me just paint you a scenario. So, it's the old woman who's standing at the bus stop, and she wants to talk about the weather, which I think we'd all be in agreement about. An utterly inane topic. Oh, it looks like rain. Oh, the weather forecast is terrible for the weekend. You know, we've all had those, again, inane conversations. Yeah. But for that old woman, who, in this particular analogy, and this isn't statistically uncommon, her husband is long since dead. She lives alone. And she might have a family who wants nothing to do with her because they're a crowd of miserable arseholes as well.
Yeah.
And she might not have enough money to turn on her heating. And so to warm up, she's just gone out of the house on a summer's day to stand at the bus stop, to get on the bus, to go nowhere because she has nowhere to be because she's long since retired. And her only social interaction is with you at the bus stop. And the only thing she can think of to talk about is the weather. And, you know, that's kind of the idea that I have in my head when I'm thinking about humanizing the person who might be engaging in this kind of a manner of speaking. Inane and frustrating though it might be, I think there's something very human going on there for a lot of people. And I just think it's important that we keep that somewhere in the mind's eye when we think about how we react to these kinds of things, you know.
Yeah, I agree. In certain contexts like that, like say people like the elderly and stuff, I'm all too aware of the type of isolated existence that they might live. Where I live here in Cork, there's an old man that lives across the road from me. He's definitely in his 80s, but the poor creator, I'd say he has a touch of dementia or possibly Alzheimer's or one of those conditions that compromises your ability to recall things.
Thanks God.
Sound God. Yeah.
But no, we live in a fallen world, PJ. That explains it all. That's convenient.
Well, it certainly is a fallen world. That is beyond debate.
In a manner of speaking, yes.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. So, you know, at least.
But where did it fall from?
Yeah.
Out of God's arse.
Yeah. So it would seem.
Yeah.
But this old man, the first few times that I encountered him, he would always hear my Tipperary accent, and he'd notice, okay, that's not a Cork accent, and he'd go, oh, where's your accent from? And I'd tell him, oh, it's from Tipp.
I'd have been tempted to say that it's from my mouth.
Yeah.
That's where my accent comes from.
See, this is kind of what we're talking about, where I might engage in smart alecky with someone younger. I wouldn't do it with an elderly person. And so I just tell him what he wants to know. So I tell him I'm from Tipp, and he'd be asking me, oh, you know, you had a great game on Sunday or something like that, talking about hurling. And the first couple of times I said to him, oh, I actually don't follow it. I have no idea. And he'd go, all right. And he'd kind of look at me kind of like I was half strange.
Like you were an alien.
Yeah. But then, like, the next couple of times that I encountered him, I noticed that we were having the same conversation again and again. And then I twigged that, okay, this man obviously has some kind of an issue with his memory, like. So rather than do that dance every time, when I saw him after that, and he'd go, oh, Tipperary, you had a great game there. And like, oh, we did all right, didn't we?
That's lovely, PJ.
Yeah.
That's
and
lovely.
next
That's
thing
lovely.
he was like, oh yeah, will you win the All Ireland? I was like, oh jeez, I don't know, sure. Hopefully we'll try our best, I suppose.
That's beautiful, man. That's I have to say, I'm not trying to be cheesy now or anything, but that's quite touching. That's a lovely little story. But what's funny and not funny at the same time is that you're none the wiser about whether or not Tipp even played. He might be in his mind reliving a match that Tipp played back in 1974.
Yeah. That's it. I am utterly oblivious to all things GA and sport in general.
Yeah.
If it involves a bunch of lads or women, I don't care, on a field chasing a ball, I don't want to fucking know about it.
Yeah. We're in violent agreement on that. I have no interest in sports whatsoever.
Yeah, that's it. And like, I couldn't be more fucking grateful for, like, I have some friends that are into sport, and they drive me up the wall, insisting on putting the shite on when I'm around, and I just find, like, time slows right down, and they're just staring at it, and they're like fucking Yeah, absolutely enthralled by fucking one man kicks a ball to another man who proceeds to kick it to another man. And, at some point, if it ends up in the back of a net, you've got an entire stadium of people screaming like animals. And you're like ah! Fucking Christ. It's like, I thought we evolved from apes, not fucking into them. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we bear the stamp of our lowly origin.
Fucking absolutely. And, but I would not deny that old man, because I know for a fact that old man lives by himself, because not terribly long ago I actually came home and that old man had fallen outside his home.
Ah, fuck.
And I came home to find him on the pavement. And he had cut open his eyebrow and stuff.
Jesus, PJ.
Yeah, because his hip isn't great, and he lost his balance and he fell. And I saw him and I nearly got a fucking heart attack because I thought someone was after attacking him or something. I picked him up. I helped him inside. I fucking cleaned him up. I tried to get him to agree to call someone, but he wasn't having it. But
too proud, maybe.
Yeah, I ended up checking in on him the next day, and he was fine. He said he had someone coming in the morning, and sure enough, someone showed up, and that was grand. But now I've been talking to him several times since, and I'm talking to him, and I can tell that he doesn't remember. But then all of a sudden, ever since then, it's the one thing that he does remember after a while. He has to be talking to me for about 30 seconds, and then he'll remember, oh, you're the fella that came over and had helped me when I fell. Yeah, that's me. And he thanks me upside down, and it
that's lovely.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Fucking, for all of my fucking talk about, not wanting to fucking talk shit with people, if I get any kind of a hint at all that fucking someone is isolated, and say when I was in that old man's house that night when I brought him in to help him after he'd fallen over and stuff, I saw photos of who was presumably his wife, who wasn't around, so she had presumably passed away, and
oh man, fucking awaits us all, by I swear to God.
Yeah.
It's very, very fucking dark, isn't it?
Yeah, you see the state that someone's life ends up in, where your memory is failing you, your loved ones have gone, and maybe the only people that you fucking talk to are the people that you see when you're just looking out your door in the morning, and you get to ask them about a match that that they haven't even watched.
Yeah, you certainly don't need a vivid imagination in order to hypothesize about what your life is going to be like in the future. All you need to do is open your fucking eyes and look at your elderly neighbours, and you can see what awaits all of us, I must admit, I don't know if it's because I'm sick and twisted or is it just a dark sense of humour, but when you were telling the story about finding him on the floor, cut and bruised and injured, and you went over to pick him up, the first thought that entered my mind was he turned around and said, "Did you see Tipp in the match on Sunday?" And then you went, "Fuck you," and threw him back onto the floor. Fucking God. I don't know why, but that's what entered my mind anyway.
Yeah. Well,
there's enough there for a psychology conference, I'd say.
As bad as I am, and I am fucking bad, I wouldn't do that. Christ above.
Can't I just pick you up off the floor and save you from hypothermia without talking about the fucking match?
Yeah. I'd say he's one of the only people on the face of this planet that I will have a conversation about the match with.
Yeah.
Other than that, even my own father, who's elderly and wheelchair bound, if there's a visitor comes over to the house and they are unaware of my disdain for sport and they ask me something about, oh, were you watching the match? My father will erupt in violent laughter, and he'd be like, oh, you're asking the wrong fella there. he almost thinks, it's hilarious that I have no interest in the match.
Yeah.
Look, each their own. Whatever you're into, we'll all be dead soon.
Yeah. I think the kind of fascination with sport or with anything for that matter. It all is just what it is, a distraction from the horrendous reality. Again, it's the analogy. It's we're sitting in the bar and the bar is on fire, but people just don't want to think about the fact that the bar is on fire. So the people across the way just want to talk about the match. And the people sat next to them just want to play their PlayStation. And the people sat next to them just want to cycle a bike and run the roads. And the people next to them want to go to the gym. And obviously I can keep going here. Yada, yada. I can include my own hobbies and interests. I mean, why are we having this conversation if not that it is a distraction from oblivion?
The ceaseless marching of time is guiding all of us to our inevitable demise.
Yeah.
So,
ooh, I like the way you put that. That's a nice. I want to set that as my ringtone. What was it? The ceaseless marching of time
is guiding all of us to our inevitable demise.
Is guiding all of us to our inevitable demise.
Yeah,
sounds like I like that.
Sounds like something fucking Agent Smith would say, or something.
It does sound like something Agent Smith would say. Yes, get old Hugo Weaving on the line there and get him to say that. That'd be cool.
Yeah. So to distract ourselves from the stark reality of the nature of existence, whatever it is you're into, be it fucking collecting stamps, watching a load of lads kick a ball to each other until it ends up in a net a couple of times. The shit I do, like fucking building a old Japanese sports car from the 80s and spending a retarded amount of money doing so. Whatever it is, it really, really doesn't matter. To each his own. There is no objective thing that you should or should not be into. You might be into something as obscure as buying large candles and carving them into the shape of Mickeys. If that's what you're into, flog away. We'll all be dead soon.
Tell that to Philip Schofield.
Yeah, well.
Whatever you're into, doesn't matter. 'Tis all just a distraction until the end of time.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the law has a thing or two to say about what you can and cannot be distracted by.
Yeah. You can't be distracted by underage boys.
Or drugs or any of those things.
Yeah, there are certain things that we frown upon, all right. And with good reason. I would have to say I would be in agreement that it's better not to groom children.
Yeah.
Groom something else. Groom... I don't know. What could you groom?
I don't know, man.
Something other than kids, anyway. I don't know the fuck.
The elderly.
Well, maybe if they had something like dementia, you could groom away because they wouldn't remember it, so fair enough.
Oh, that's terrible. That reminds me of a joke that I told that I got a very, very unpleasant reaction to one time. Oh. I was, again, for the listeners, there's a reason I'm called a Magic Skeptic. It's not just because I'm a skeptic and I'm an atheist and I do all those things, arguments for God's existence and all that, but it's actually because I have a background in magic. I've been a practicing magician now for decades.
He's a magic man.
A magic man, yes. I as a side note, by the way, I love the duality and the utterly ridiculous juxtaposition of my title, Magic Skeptic, because, like, magic is anathema to skepticism.
Yeah, so, absolutely.
It's like calling yourself the Black Klansman or something. You know, there's something about it that... Anyway, that's a side note, but I digress. I was doing magic for a guy one time, and that sounds vaguely homoerotic, doesn't it? Or maybe that's just me. Maybe, like, Freud might have a thing or two to say about the association I just formed in my mind there.
I can imagine some lad there now with, like, his two hands up behind his head. It's like, Jesus, Dara, you're doing some magic there, boy.
Jez, I was skeptical, but you're pure magic. I'll call you the Magic Skeptic.
he made my horn disappear.
Look, no hands.
He made that throbbing erection vanish.
Yes, yeah. Lickety split.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was doing magic for this guy, and, you know, when you're doing magic, a magician kind of plays almost like the part of a comedian as well. Like, there's lots of gags and jokes and bits and so on. And
Gagging
I told
fucking Mickey.
but I used to do, I haven't done loads of it now. I did it like maybe 3 or 4 times in my life, but I did a bit of volunteering at a couple of different old folks' homes. And that conversation came up. And I said the best thing about doing magic for the Alzheimer's patients is that you just need to bring one trick and you can do it over and over again and they never get sick of it. So obviously not a very funny joke when explained in the cold light of day in a conversation like this, but in situ, it actually got a giggle out of the people I was showing magic for. But this one guy took umbrage and he said, my grandfather had Alzheimer's. To which I said, yeah, so did mine and my grandmother. That's the reason we laugh about things, because if we don't laugh, the only other option is to cry. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, and I just hate that. I hate the joke police.
Yeah.
You know, my grandfather, like, get fucked. Get fucked. Oh, so I shouldn't be able to make jokes about people with Alzheimer's, is it? Oh, I thought you believed in equality. Like, this is what's really, really weird about what's happened to our conversation about comedy in 2023. And it's the reason why I love comedians like Frankie Boyle, Ricky Gervais, and so on. Because they push the envelope and they refuse to bow to the pressure that is coming from various political camps, shall we say. And, you can't joke about this because that's, beyond the pale. And this subject over here is not fit for humour, etc., etc. Ricky Gervais put it really, really well when he was talking about the trans movement on stage, and he said, of course I see trans people as equal to myself. That's why I include them in my comedy.
Yeah.
And the crowd gave him an uproarious round of applause, and deservedly so. I thought that was such a great point, to not include some. Can you, I don't know about you, PJ, but I would be incredibly offended if somebody said, oh, no, I don't do jokes about Irish people. I think that's beyond the pale. The Irish had it hard enough for 800 years. They were raped and pillaged by the British. That we shouldn't joke about the famine. We shouldn't joke about British imperialism. We shouldn't joke about Irish people and alcoholism, because alcoholism is a very serious problem, and there's people destitute, there's homelessness, there's, wife beating going on. We shouldn't joke about that. Oh, goodness, God forbid. I would be incredibly offended if somebody decided not to joke about Irish people, because I would feel like I had been patronised. I would feel like what was actually being said is, you people aren't able for humour, so we're going to exclude you from being the subject of any potential joke. I think that's utterly despicable, and people want to do that in relation to the trans community. They want to do that in relation to the Black Lives Matter movement, or persons of colour more generally. They want to do it in relation to the Holocaust or Jews, or whatever the case may be, whatever the hot button issue is. No, we mustn't joke about that. And you know what? All of those anti-joke people, the joke police as I call them, they can all, quite frankly, get fucked. Yep. Because they're on the losing side of an argument. Like, there's no justification for what they're talking about at all, other than the protection of their own feelings. And frankly, I'm just not interested.
Yeah, like, look, we live in a world that is full to the brim of fucking horrors and horrendous things. Yes.
The 90s movie guy.
Yeah. But the world is full of fucking horror, and if I think our only defense against it is fucking laughter.
Absolutely.
And if
100%.
Yeah. And if you want to take that away from someone, what do we have left? What do we do? So do we just wallow in fucking self-pity about the fucking sad state of things and just all be uptight and fucking miserable and it's a fucking joke, it's words. Get over it.
Yeah. And vote with your wallet, Don't pay for a ticket to go see that comedian, or don't watch that set on Netflix, or don't click into, let's say Sergeant Ducky, don't click into his next video if you find that humour offensive. Just don't watch it. But unfortunately, that's not good enough for some of these people. It's all about control. It's a I don't like it, so therefore nobody else should be able to watch it either. Like, what an utterly bizarre strange, ridiculous expectation for a person to have. I don't like this, so nobody else should be able to view it either. Again, I'm sorry, and you might have to do a bit of censoring here, but just get fucked. I have no interest in listening to those people.
There'll be no censoring done on my channel, let me tell you. Yeah, so in other words, my channel mightn't be around terribly long. But in any case, myself and Ducky, I think we briefly mentioned something about this, about the joke police and stuff. Like there's an episode of the IT Crowd that, to the best of my knowledge, they've delisted from whatever streaming service. I'm not sure, was it Netflix or was it fucking Channel 4 or whatever it was.
I think the same happened to Fawlty Towers.
Yeah,
there was an episode of that it was delisted. I think perhaps it has been relisted again, but it has been edited or basically rendered PC, because the morality and the joke police got their teeth into it, basically, something like that.
Where do you draw the line in the sand with this shit? Like, I mean, how long until we decide that fucking everything that we used to laugh at isn't appropriate anymore? Like, say, oh, well, there's a joke about someone being ugly or unattractive or something like that, and that's not on, so therefore all this has to go now. Where does the buck stop? Like, I mean, it's either all okay or fucking none of it's okay.
Yeah, because the paradigm shifts and changes so quickly.
Yeah.
I'll give you one example. Now, I don't necessarily, I don't know if it'd be wise, or I'm not necessarily trying to, table this as a formal discussion or something. I just think it's a really interesting observation. The phenomenon of so-called misgendering. Or the phenomenon of what's called dead naming, right? Where you call somebody by the name that they used to identify with, and now they have a different name because they've changed genders. Now, if you were to try to imagine the mindset, I mean, we don't have to imagine it because you and I both grew up in the 90s, PJ, and some of your listeners might very well have grown up in the 70s or the 60s before that or whatnot. Even somebody growing up in the noughties will be able to appreciate this. But the idea that would be a grave moral mistake to name somebody's so-called dead name, like the idea that would be wrong and immoral the way it's considered now in society. Like, the point I'm trying to get across here is that it's impossible to anticipate where the moral barometer of society is going to be 10 years from now. For all we know, certain things we're talking about in this conversation right now are going to be just utterly anathema to society 5-10 years from now. And they're going to look back and recoil in horror. Just like we look back and we recoil in horror when we read, Huckleberry Finn was the subject of great controversy recently. And they were talking about editing that. The PC police were getting a hold of that and they wanted to edit it because the N-word appears in that novel quite a few times. One of the characters is called N-word Jim, apparently. Now, I've not read it.
Right.
I've no interest in fiction myself, but they were basically going to try and sanitize it, which, and I'm not defending the N-word here specifically, but Huckleberry Finn is a cultural relic.
Yeah.
It's a piece of history, and in my view, history should not be edited. We shouldn't have a version of Mein Kampf where we take out all the anti-Semitism, because then it's no longer Mein Kampf. Well, it's just Hitler's Sunday diary.
If it's edited, it's no longer history. Now it's just fiction.
Exactly. And so, yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that, you can't anticipate what's going to happen in the future. So it doesn't make sense to go around and edit everything in the present, because everything we edit now, the edits will be out of date in 10 years and we might need to reintroduce things because it might actually become offensive that we removed something. Like, let's imagine in 10, 20 years' time, the paradigm is such that it's just fundamentally unethical. It is just a bombshell example of immorality, the height of immorality, to edit history. Right? Let's imagine that becomes the paradigm 20 years from now. Well, then all the people who edited things like Huckleberry Finn or Fawlty Towers or you name it.
H.P. Lovecraft, I think a lot of his work got called into question because supposedly he had, like, I've read some of his stuff, and I can't, like, there's no storyline that's got any massive, like, to my knowledge at least, any massive kind of racial stuff going on in it. But I think there's, at certain points, maybe the N-word is referenced or used, and maybe some other instances of it. But yeah, there were people, I remember, calling for, you know, those books to be basically taken out of print and taken off the fucking shelves, despite the fact that they're probably some of the, you know, like, I'm a big fan of fiction, you know, because reality is shit. So
so might as well bury my head in an alternate one.
Yeah, might as well substitute it for a better one. So yeah. But there was calls for his work to be abolished, basically, and I think that would be an absolute fucking travesty. Like, you know, whatever he was, whatever his, you know, he might have been the greatest fucking racist to ever put on a pair of shoes. Who fucking knows? But I would always be of the opinion that you have to separate the art from the artist.
Indeed.
There's various artists out there, and I think that they're fucking appalling, sickening bastards of people, but they are masters of their craft.
Yep.
You know, for instance, Kevin Spacey may be whatever.
Great example.
Yeah, he might be whatever, you know, he's accused of being. I don't know. I don't know what way the evidence is on that. I don't particularly care. A fucking great entertainer he is, all the same, you know?
House of Cards.
Yeah, like...
American Beauty.
Yeah.
Seven.
And if you're telling me that I can't watch a film with Kevin Spacey in it and fucking thoroughly enjoy a fucking unbelievable performance of his, my only response to you is, fuck off.
Yeah, my concern with all of this censorship stuff, which seems to be coming up more and more in our time, is that I just don't understand what these people are hoping to achieve. I think I know what they believe they're achieving. So if you'll allow me to hypothesize for a moment about their mindset, and you tell me if you get a sense that I'm going wrong here, PJ, but let's just imagine the mindset of the person who wants to, let's say, cancel, what was the show you were talking about a moment ago?
The IT Crowd?
Yes, okay, let's imagine the person who wants to cancel that particular episode of the IT Crowd because it was politically insensitive or socially insensitive or whatever the allegation is. I think what they believe that they're accomplishing, they might believe they're accomplishing a number of things. Well, first of all, they are going to accomplish the goal of the people who are offended by it will no longer continue to be offended by it because it won't be possible to view it anymore. So I think that's part of the goal. But I think they also believe in some sense that by censoring it or removing it, that nobody else can be, in a manner of speaking, infected by it. Now who's starting to sound like Agent Smith. I think they might have this kind of like contagion view that if there's racism in a particular thing or if there's sexism in a particular thing, that could be infectious and it could be passed on to viewers who will then manifest that sexism or that racism in their own life because they were infected by it, and inception will have occurred when they witnessed it somewhere else or something like that. And I just don't think that they're correct. I would say, first of all, the people who were offended by episodes of television and are so offended that they want them cancelled, that kind of person is always going to find something else to be offended by, it seems to me.
Yeah.
So that's problem number one. You
know, furthermore, like, you don't have a right to be insulated from all of this shit. Like, 100%. You just fucking don't. No. Like, if you're offended by something, that's your fucking problem, buddy. It doesn't mean that I don't get to, you know, make up my own mind about something, or someone else doesn't get to make up their own mind about something. If you don't fucking like it, don't fucking watch it. You know? But this insistence on getting rid of stuff, I don't know, like, it's I don't think, you know, any of the perpetrators of this cancel culture shit, I don't think that there's much behind it other than some kind of elaborate attempt at virtue signaling. There's no rationality to it. Like these people can't honestly believe that any of this makes a lick of sense, because if you think of the second you scrutinize
It falls apart.
Yeah, it falls asunder. So it's just a very poorly thought out,
indeed,
elaborate attempt at virtue signaling, and it's just, oh, look at me, aren't I so fucking sensitive, and my bleeding heart for all the poor people that these words or jokes might hurt. And it's like, yeah, are you aware of the world that we live in? Like the unspeakable horrors and tragedies that occur all the time, everywhere, every day.
And you're worried about an episode of the IT Crowd.
Yeah, and you're worried about words and jokes. Yeah. Like, fuck off, buddy. Do you know that, like, every fucking breath you take is killing you? Are you aware of that? Like, soak that in. And you're wasting your finite amount of time on this planet to exist, worrying about jokes and words.
Coming back to the bar analogy, I think basically this is their hobby. The outrage police. Like, some people are happy with a pint, other people are happy to watch sports, other people are happy to play the PlayStation as their particular distraction.
Other people are happy to shaft young boys.
Yes, as we've established. But some people distract themselves from the monotony of existence with outrage. But that brings me to the second point, which is, the second goal they think they're accomplishing. They think that by removing this thing from circulation, that they're preventing other people from being infected by it. And I can't help but think of a scene from one of my favourite films of all time. That is the very first Scream movie, a masterpiece of the horror genre and the meta commentary genre, directed by Wes Craven, rest in peace. But there's a scene at the end where one of the killers is revealed to... I won't spoil the movie for those who haven't seen it, but one of the people...
Who in the fuck hasn't seen that?
Well, you never know. I have a thing about that. I don't like to spoil things. So in any case, this particular person who's revealed to be a killer says an iconic line. He says that horror movies don't create serial killers. They just make serial killers more creative. And I think there's a real truth to that. This idea, this moral panic that has happened with many things. It's happened with horror movies. It's happened with video games. It's now happening with politics. And the claim is basically all variations in the same theme. The claim is that these examples of media are going to turn people into terrible versions of themselves. So horror movies are going to turn teenagers into psychopaths, which I don't think there's any good evidence for. It just seems ludicrous to me, the idea that an innocent, good, moral person could walk into a movie and have witnessed so much violence that they then leave that movie and then go enact that violence on others. Clearly, if you leave a movie and go enact violence on somebody else, it's because you weren't stable to begin with. And I think the same is true with racism and sexism and all those things. So these people who think that the IT crowd or that Huckleberry Finn or you name it is going to turn people into racists, sexists, homophobes, or whatever the case may be, I think they're just deluded. I think sexism and homophobia and all those things begin long before somebody watched an episode of something. It probably begins in the home. It probably begins with their culture, probably begins with their parents and what they've told them, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So anyway, I just say that for what it's worth. I don't buy the argument that Fawlty Towers is going to unleash racism upon the world. I mean, that's just ludicrous. It's quite a faulty assertion. The dad jokes are strong with this one.
Yeah. Jesus. What was I going to say? Moving forward, say, like, this is undoubtedly going to be the first of many podcasts that myself and yourself do on this channel. What do you reckon the type of thing that we might maybe discuss in the future? We just might maybe throw a few ideas out there, and maybe people might respond in the comments, tell us what they would like to hear. We could shite on all day about films.
Poverty, famine, genocide,
yeah. Sickness,
the Holocaust, cancer.
Yeah.
Those are some topics that I relish.
Absolutely, yeah.
I know. On a serious note, films. I'm a big movie buff. My house is a shrine to it. So yeah, I would. I'm happy to talk about all things movies. Perhaps some of your commenters would like a particular film discussed or something of that nature, maybe they could talk about that. But yeah, we could talk about anything, PJ. Politics, like we've been doing right now. Free speech, I think, is a topic we both care about. Nihilism is a topic we both care about. Ironically.
Yeah. Or don't care about it, doesn't matter.
Yeah. I suppose, yeah, I mean, like, there's just, I mean, you and I could talk about anything, couldn't we? Let's face it.
Absolutely. And I think despite the fact that we have invariably got into dark subject matter, I think for us, this is actually one of our more light-hearted conversations.
It has been, actually. And I know to the untrained ear, it might not seem that way. But if you'll forgive the shameless plug, just venture over to my channel for a couple of hours and listen to what PJ and I have discussed. And I'll just say this much. I wouldn't listen if you're on shaky ground vis-a-vis your desire to stay alive.
Yeah, it's
not for the faint of heart, the kind of stuff that we get into on my channel. It can be quite heavy, that's for sure.
Yeah. But we also spoke about the 3 Matrix films and that other fucking fourth abomination, yeah. Christ almighty.
Yeah, yeah, there's a special place in hell for anybody who was involved in producing that atrocity.
That contagion that was fucking unleashed onto the world. Oh my Christ. What an awful film.
But like, it was just destined to fail from the start. Like, they didn't even wait for Hugo Weaving, even though he was interested. Now, I don't think Hugo Weaving could have saved it, because the script is the script. But, I mean, it would have been marginally less shit had he reprised his role. But even all that said, like there's just failures in it that are just unforgivable. Like the choreography and
is non-existent.
It's cut, shaky cam. When you compare the choreography with the previous films, it's like an entirely different crew was involved. Now, I haven't looked into it, but I'm going to go ahead and wager that there was an entirely different crew involved. Starting with one of the directors isn't there. So the first one was directed by the pair of the Wachowski siblings, and the second one is directed by one of them. And, like, clearly the other sibling was a serious player.
Was instrumental in
the greatness of the first 3. And I used the word great there for the first 3, and I expect to receive some pushback for that, because I know people generally don't like the second and the third one, but you and I are in violent agreement in that, PJ, that it's actually a solid trilogy. We wouldn't say that they're as good as the first one, of course, but
no, the first one is definitely like a cult classic fucking movie.
It's the pièce de résistance.
Yeah, absolutely. But, you know, you fucking try and tell me that fucking freeway sequence in the second movie isn't fucking outstanding, or some of the ideas about, you know, free will and determinism aren't fucking absolutely fucking riveting. And once again, my only response to you is fuck off. So, you know,
I feel like that's been a frequent it's been a common theme in tonight's conversation.
Indeed.
And if you disagree, you can fuck off.
Kindly fuck off. Get your bag and baggage and fuck off. What was I going to say? Speaking about Keanu Reeves, I watched John Wick 4 recently.
Oh yeah, did you like it?
It was ridiculously long for that type of film. 3 hours. Fuck me, man. Like,
it's a long film.
Yeah, but for the type of movie it is, like, they're not very plot heavy movies. So it's basically action sequence after action sequence, and I found that because of the fucking length of it, it's just basically him relentlessly shooting people and flogging people for 3 hours, and it starts to become a bit fucking meaningless. And there's a sequence at the end where he keeps falling down these steps. Jesus Christ almighty. He spends half the film falling down steps. And
so you didn't like it then?
Not really. Like, there was
I loved it, man. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
The choreography and the what's that monument in France called? The
Arc de Triomphe.
Yes, thank you. I should have remembered that actually, because I drew it as part of my art course when I was in school, but I'd bloody forgotten it. But anyway, that's why I have you, lad.
Aye.
But that sequence there, the fighting there when he was chucking people into cars and stuff. And I don't know, man, when it went aerial and we got that aerial sequence
that
like
was
a
class.
video game. Like, I found the whole thing. I agree with you that I felt the length, that's for sure. But overall, I thought it was a masterpiece. I thought it was the best one. I think 4 is the best one that they've done.
Yeah, I didn't like the ending either. I thought the ending... The resolution to the entire thing I found to be very unsatisfying, and I can't get into why without getting into spoilers. So let's just say I came away from it not terribly impressed. But here's just a little tidbit of, you know, me and you discussing films. I'm not sure. Do you ever watch my mano, The Critical Drinker?
No.
Oh, okay. He does film reviews and all that kind of stuff, and he often has a few other guys on, and they discuss films, what they like and what they don't. But that's something that me and you could do.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah, I'm down for that. Absolutely. I'm truth to be told, I plan on starting a second YouTube channel at some point in the next 3, maybe 2 months, something like that.
Yeah.
That's going to be focused specifically on movie stuff, because I've just got so much to say. Maybe nobody will be interested in hearing it, but you don't know that until you try. But I've got so much to say about films, and so much to offer in terms of commentary, and just as well in terms of movie memorabilia. And I attend all of the Comic Cons here in the UK, and I meet celebrities frequently and get their autographs and stuff. I'm a huge memorabilia and autograph hunter and stuff. Like, I just feel like I would love to do something movie related to my channel. But yeah, if you want to do movie conversations frequently on your channel as well, PJ, sign me up.
Deadly.
You're talking my language.
Excellent. Yeah. So we could do a bit of that, or what else could we do? Talk about Mickey's?
Cocaine. We could do that. But yeah, movies, lad, would be a great shout. And as I said, you know, hot button political issues and philosophical topics and that sort of thing.
Yeah, like we've been threatening, it's been my fault that we haven't followed through on it, but we've been threatening to do a conversation on your channel about Calvary, because that's a movie that is very pertinent to the subject matter that your channel is based around. So
indeed,
we got to get on that soon, and I might even fucking watch that film over the weekend and just get it fucking done, because I've seen it already, of course, but I just need to...
It's always nice to have a refresher, of
yeah,
course.
You just have to brush up on it, because there'll be certain bits and bobs that you'll have forgotten about. Yeah, but to knock a good conversation out of that would be good. Yeah, I'd say we could also do a pretty good one about his latest one. What is it? Banshees of Inisherin.
Yeah, Banshees. Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, class. Great show.
It's weird. It's a very, very weird film, but I liked it.
Yeah, it kind of has that feeling of like Irish folklore about it. Like there's certain parts of it that almost sound like an old tale that you'd read in an old storybook from way back when, like that. That whole thing.
The movie is clearly not a literal narrative.
Yeah.
It's clear that the characters in the movie represent ideas. They symbolize something. It's not
archetypical.
Yeah, it's an archetypical film as opposed to a realist film, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know, it's not meant to be like, these aren't real characters on a real island that you're witnessing the trials and tribulations of. What you're actually witnessing is symbols that serve as, or characters that serve as a conduit for various ideas and symbols that the writer is intending to convey. It's the most experimental is probably the wrong word. Abstract might be a better word. It's the most abstract writing that Martin McDonagh has done, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think everything else he's done has been pretty straightforward. So if that's a sign of where he's going as a writer, I am worried, because while he hit it out of the park with Banshees, I'm not actually a big fan of those kinds of films. Darren Aronofsky does stuff like that. I don't know if you ever saw Black Swan or...
Oh, I did, yeah.
Did he do Mother? Did he do Mother?
I think he did. I think he did, yeah.
Like, I'm not a big fan of those kinds of films. I mean, I can appreciate the artistry and the cinematography and the performances and things, but I actually just like a good story.
Yeah.
You know, I just like a good, straightforward narrative. When I say straightforward, I don't mean that the narrative has to be chronological or that the narrative can't have twists and turns and that it can't be complex and all the rest of it. When I say straightforward, I just mean that what I'm witnessing is an actual story where the characters aren't meant to just represent themes or variations on a theme or allegories or things like that.
Yeah.
I think you know where I'm coming from, PJ.
Yeah. Sure. Like my favorite film of all time has got one of the most simplistic, straightforward stories going. That being Drive, 2011, Ryan Gosling. It's a
great show.
Directed by Nicholas Winding Refn.
Yeah, and Bryan Cranston is in that as well.
He most certainly is.
Yeah, he has a good little part in it too.
Yeah. So, you know, that's got the stuff that I love. Like, it's got tone and ambience out the fucking wazoo and a brilliant soundtrack. And, you know, just like every fucking frame of that film is a painting. And like some of the visual storytelling that you can read into in it just about the characters and about stuff that's going on internally with them. It's just, there's no end to it, like, but on paper the plot is very fucking simple and very straightforward, but there's plenty to read into.
The music is just absolutely fucking sensational.
Yeah.
Oh my god. The whole soundscape really of that movie is just perfection. It really is.
Yeah, the opening of it, I'll never forget the first time I saw that in the cinema, and the opening of it, I was just fucking like, holy fuck, just melted into the chair, like when that when that tune comes on, Night Call. Oh Christ.
Yeah. Oh yes. Yeah. That's what a great tune. Yeah. That's just one of those examples of Tarantino has this in his films as well, but just perfect music selection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's like, you know, it reminds me of Reservoir Dogs, where Mr. Blonde, played by Michael Madsen, is dancing to Stuck in the Middle with You while he's torturing the cop. Like, that scene just it just wouldn't be the same without Stuck in the Middle with You.
Stuck in the middle of you, Jesus.
yeah, fucking hell, yeah. Speaking of Freud, there's a Freudian slip, huh?
Yeah.
I'm so scared in case I fall off my chair. Oh, man, I'm just going to have to go watch Reservoir Dogs now again. Like, fucking hell. I love film so much.
Yeah, I'm partial to an old film myself.
Down in the old picture house.
The picture house, yeah. I used to work in a picture house, so I did for 4 years.
You did, yeah.
Yeah.
The talkies.
Yeah, that's it. But some of the best years of my life, in fact. And they've all just been steadily getting worse ever since, and they will continue to do so until I expire into the void of nothingness that awaits us all.
And that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine. It's grand.
Yeah, that won't, like, I spent the first 13.8 billion years of the universe's existence in the void of nothingness, and I don't seem to recall feeling any discomfort. So the next 13 billion years should be pretty good as well, I imagine. Yeah, well,
I'll tell you, the last 34 fucking years now, they've been the really tough ones.
It was grand there for 13.8 billion years.
Yeah,
and then
there was
for whatever reason, the last 31 were just a real fucking pain in my ballsack.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's weird,
existence
like
is suffering.
Fucking chalk it down.
Smoke. Do you remember that in Family Guy?
No.
There's this great episode where there's this company that sells cigarettes. Laramie Cigarettes, I think, was the name of the company, if memory serves correctly. I might be conflating that with a Simpsons episode, maybe. But whatever the case may be, this cigarette company uses, subtle, like what they believe to be subtle marketing techniques to try and influence people to smoke.
Yeah.
And they're just in the middle of this conversation, and this like disheveled, hairy, like old gentleman with a bulging belly is just standing in the background, and he goes, "Smoke."
Right.
That's their, what's it called? Unconscious manipulation or whatever the name is. But anyway. Subliminal, thank you. Subliminal message. Not so subliminal, but
yeah.
It was great.
Just when we got on to Family Guy there, like, the thing that I always think of, because it's just like, the things that send me into hysterics laughing are often they're often strange. They're not the things that most people would think of. Might be one of the more obscure references to Family Guy, but say there's one bit anyways where they're doing one of their little cutaways, and I don't even know who they're referencing, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't hinder my enjoyment of the sequence. But there's one bit where Peter's doing one of his cutaways, and he says, "Oh, I don't know, it would be like a Paul Schaefer fire alarm." And it cuts to this scene. Yeah. The fucking curtain catches fire and the smoke, and next thing the fucking alarm just fucking that absolutely fucking kills me.
That reminds me of the Simpsons episode where the robot is on fire. Why did you program me to feel pain?
Yeah. Flailing the arms around like.
Why?
Yeah.
Isn't that what any conscious creature asks of its maker?
If you were going to design things in such a way that other things were going to prey on me in order to sustain their own existence, could you not at least make it painless when they fucking bury their teeth in me? You fucking bastard, like.
I saw a Joe Rogan clip on TikTok talking about a bear attack, and there was this guy who went out into the wilderness to record the sounds of nature, and he fell asleep and woke up to a bear attacking him, and the audio recording is online apparently because he was recording the sounds of nature. How fitting that he was eaten alive by a bear, and the audio is recorded and you can go and listen to it, like.
Yeah.
Man, I mean, I wouldn't. That's not my fucking cup of tea. But apparently bears they're not like predators. They're omnivores, apparently, according to Joe Rogan. And so they don't, like, a predator kills. That's what they do. They kill you. Their goal is to end you instantly, as quickly as possible. But that's not a bear's goal. It's not that the bear's goal is to torture you. It's just not in their nature to instantly kill you. So they just eat you and eat you alive. They eat their prey alive.
Yeah.
Like, it's just and again, going back to the key point that you're making there about creator and created, if there is a God and God designed this system as is, which is presumably what people who believe in God actually believe.
He's one sadistic bastard.
Then he is a fucking sadistic motherfucker. I mean, and you can't get out of this by saying, oh, but Adam and Eve. God still decides the punishment for Adam and Eve fucking up. And he decided to send us to a world of his own design that involves something like a bear. Just one example that it involves, where bears eat their prey, human or not, eat their prey while they're still alive.
Yeah, that explanation still leaves you with the same outcome. God is still a sadistic fucking lunatic.
Exactly. Exactly.
That punishment is not proportionate to the crime.
Yeah. I love the way Sam Harris put it one time. He said that the actions of God would embarrass the most ambitious psychopath.
Ain't that the fucking truth?
Yeah, fucking chalk it down, man. He puts Hannibal Lecter to shame, puts Jeffrey Dahmer to shame, you know.
It is this world as is that catalyzes all of these fucking lunatics, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Just this chaos that we're all fucked into.
Indeed.
But, you know, we should all be worried about words and jokes.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. We should be worried about episodes of the IT Crowd.
Yeah, a whimsical, light-hearted comedy.
Although, you know what? In a moment of reflexive thinking here, I mean, we're arguably guilty of the exact same thing, because in that same world of ultimate consequence and ultimate brutality, we're worrying about the people who are worried about the IT crowd. So in some sense, we are guilty of the very thing that we are criticizing, where people are concerned about things that are utterly trivial when compared to the utterly large cosmic void that we find ourselves in, you know?
Yeah, I suppose, but at least we're not trying to, rob people of the things that bring them enjoyment and distraction from what is otherwise an existence comprised of fucking misery.
Well, I can't say that so much for myself because, I am the Magic Skeptic here. I do spend quite a bit of energy on resisting religion and religious beliefs, and it might very well be the case that those beliefs serve as a distraction, but I just care about what's true, and that's it really. And also, and I feel like I'll be repeating this until the day that I die, this thing that people seem to automatically grant when it comes to faith, that it is a comfort in the face of the nihilistic void. The
opiate of the masses, I believe. Who was it said that?
Why am I drawing a blank? Is that Marx? Yeah, Marx. Yeah.
Ah, there we go.
Yeah, just for whatever reason, my brain was giving me an error signal, and I said Marx, and I was like, hang on a minute, have I just uttered a falsehood? So I just wanted to make sure. But in any case, yeah, I do resist these beliefs, but I also resist the idea that these beliefs are just an opiate. They can also cause an immense amount of misery, and so that's one of the primary reasons, apart from the fact that there's not a shred of evidence or a shred of good evidence for any of it. I resist it as well because it's not always the case that these beliefs merely confer comfort, because there are people who are writhing in psychological agony because of their fear of hell, and homosexuals who are utterly repressed because their religion has taught them that their very nature is sinful and to be hidden and to be escaped and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I will continue to resist it. Whether it's a distraction or not is beside the point. I think in the words of Matt Dillahunty, I think the world would be a better place if people believed as many true things and as few false things as possible.
Yep, can't find fault with that. I suppose we've gone on for a grand length.
Tis a grand length.
Grand length of webbing.
That's all I ever want to hear. Just that's a grand length.
Yeah. Yeah. If I get to hear that even once. Even knowing full well that it's a lie.
Yes, tell me lies.
Tell me sweet little lies.
Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies. What a tune.
Funny enough, we're singing that after, going on about, people believing as many true things, that would be
Indeed.
Best.
Oh, except that. There's that exception is automatically granted. I mean, you have to lie to a man about that.
Yeah, humour me with nice lies, though.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. That's the only lie I'll accept.
Yeah, sure, look, I think this is a solid first attempt. I know we're planning on doing a series of Father Ted podcasts.
Indeed,
so
I can't wait.
We'll hammer those out, and they will be on in the near future, as I'm going to do my best to try and be more consistent about this podcasting crack.
Hit me up anytime, PJ. It's an honour to appear on the channel.
It's a fucking honour to have you, lad. A better guest I could not ask for.
Thank you very much. No, it's great, and yeah, I hope your listeners enjoyed it, listening to my ridiculous thoughts.
They're not all that fucking ridiculous now, everything being relative. I've come across a few cunts now, especially on the internet, that spout far more ridiculous shite and make a living off it.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, we live in a world where people get wealthy by posting cat memes.
And you know something? I'd be more so okay with the cat memes and stuff like that. I can see some utility in the cat memes, but there's people out there and like the type of content that they make and the utter fucking not trying to assert that this kind of stuff I'm producing is fucking highbrow or anything like that, but there are just some fuckers out there. Like there's one fucker in particular that I know. He's an Irish YouTuber. I'm not going to mention by name because I don't want to I don't want to just open that can of worms as, throwing shade at some other guy, but...
An online spat.
Yeah, that's it.
But just so we're clear, we're talking about Ducky, right?
We are. How in the name of Jesus does that cunt ever fucking make anything of it? There really is an audience for everything, it would seem.
It's funny because I know the YouTuber you're talking about. At least I think I know the one you're about to talk about. Again, we won't name them, but I think you, if I'm correct, you've told me a story about this YouTuber before.
Yeah, I'd say we're probably on the same page, but I mean, this prick is a fucking personality vacuum and is as absolutely false. But people fucking lap up whatever he throws out, and it's absolutely benign crap.
Yeah.
Not saying the stuff that I make isn't. Jesus Christ. I mean, this is just rubbish. Low effort, poorly thought out crap, and the lad is creaming it in.
The market decides, though, man. The market decides, bitter though it might be to accept. The market decides, and so...
Do you remember I sent you that quote there recently, that little meme, but it was a quote from Schopenhauer.
Yes.
It said, he who writes for fools will always be sure of a large audience.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
And I think that
indeed
is the case with this particular fucking genetic cul-de-sac. But anyway...
Genetic cunt de sac.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And he's far from the only one. He is far from the only one, but sure, look.
No, I understand the frustration. I mean, I put a considerable amount of effort into my content, and it's definitely paying off. My channel is growing, but not at anywhere near the rate that some other channels are growing at, and what they are doing is comparatively, from the outside looking in, I mean, I could be mistaken, I'd be happy to be shown to be wrong, but some other channels appear to be putting in the minimal effort and getting a maximal result, if you will.
Yeah.
And it can be frustrating, but sometimes it's just a look at the algorithm. Sometimes it just genuinely is the market, and the market decides. And, I guess all we can do as creators is to look at the success of others, and rather than be envious of it or be resentful of it, try to see through that and identify the causes of the success and try to model it in our own work if we can. At least that's the mindset that I try to have, because and I'm not suggesting you're resentful for a moment. If anything, I'm talking about myself, because I felt resentment in the past about channels that were ballooning with success despite putting out what I believe to be subpar, poor quality content. And so I've had to fight those feelings in myself and try to use those moments as learning experiences. And yeah, I suppose nobody's asking for my advice here, but if you are a creator out there, I would recommend adopting a similar mindset. Or if you're an aspiring YouTuber, I would recommend adopting a similar mindset, because that's a growth mindset, and a growth mindset is exactly what you need if you're going to succeed in this space we call YouTube.
Look, fundamentally, like, say, I think Ed Sheeran is like one of the worst things to happen to music ever. But the lad has made a fucking absolute fortune off it. So fucking power to him. Do you know? Yep. I don't respect him as an artist, but I do respect him as a businessman.
Indeed.
There's a market for what he puts out, and he lives like a king on the back of it. So,
he's a model for success. There's no question about it.
Yep. So, like him or fucking hate him, I mean, there is demand for what he or anybody else makes, and they're willing to meet that demand and become successful and wealthy as a result. Fucking power to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so I suppose on that note, we'll shag off, will we?
Yeah. Thanks for having me again, lad. I appreciate it. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah, I think it was a fucking solid one now, so you can't beat a good solid one. No doubt we'll do a fucking lash of these moving forward. Like I said, I'm going to try to be more consistent. I had a whole ball of shit going on that I won't get into, because nobody cares, and I don't care to repeat it. So, but suffice to say, I will be more consistent moving forward. So there'll be more of this.
Awesome.
Should anyone care to consume it.
I can't wait.
Nor I. Right, so unless death comes for us in the meantime, we'll see you all soon.
All the best.
Good luck.